The train raced steadily along the night road. The passengers slept soundly under the clatter of the wheels. It was late at night, and only Wendy was still spinning from side to side on the upper cabin shelf and could not sleep a wink. The girl was so afraid of what awaited her in the big city. Would she be able to settle down there? Her mother had given her the last of her money, and it was unclear how she would survive. If something happens, there's no one to turn to for help. Her friend Amanda was snoring sweetly on the bottom shelf, smiling serenely in her sleep. But what did she care? She was from a well-to-do family. She had rich relatives in the capital, and they had given her a place in the restaurant. And she's already lured Wendy with her. As long as she could remember, Wendy was always a little jealous of her friend, because she always had fashionable clothes, the latest model of phone. Her mother gave her a lot of money for pocket money at school, and a couple of sandwiches. Amanda's birthdays were celebrated in a special way. Even animators were invited. Wendy's backpack was always a bit of a mess. She told her friends that she had gone on a diet, and now she didn't eat. But they only laughed. They knew she was from a dysfunctional family. This stigma haunted her all her childhood. On her birthday, her mother always hugged her and gave her something she needed, like sneakers from a cheap sale or an unsightly tracksuit. Something that other kids were bought for nothing when the child grew out of the old clothes. And what she wanted was never discussed. Mom was pregnant all the time, and their family had 5 children one by one, and this despite the fact that they lived poor as church mice and the father drank. Mom was a devout believer who believed that abortion was a great sin, and that as many children as God didn't give you, you should raise them. Pam herself, in spite of her pregnancy and 5 children, also worked like an ox, washed the entrances and ran to the market to pick fruits and vegetables, so that at least somehow they could live. After all, there was little hope for her husband. He was a drinker, so he never stayed long at any job. Wendy was the oldest daughter, so she became a second mother to all the other siblings. And the lion's share of the household chores now fell on her shoulders. Although she was only 7 years old at the time, her mother made her do all the housework and take care of the children. All Wendy ever heard was, "You're the eldest, you're supposed to help your mom. We're one family, we're all responsible for each other." Their old house was like a communal home, with mountains of diapers and children's things hanging on ropes, smelling of fried onions and burnt porridge, and there was always someone running around and roaring. Sometimes it was unbearable, so Wendy ran to her friend Amanda's house, and there she rested her soul. How they had a quiet, beautiful house, treated with delicacies. The girl could quietly study and take a break from the home madhouse. Nevertheless, her brothers and sisters she loved and pitied. When drunken father raged, Wendy quickly dressed them all and took them out for a walk, or they went to the neighbors to sit through. The whole yard knew their troubled family. The children were pitied, and their mother, Pam, too. She wasn't a bad woman, but she'd married badly. So what could she do? At school, few people were friends with Wendy, except Amanda, and that was because she did all her homework for her and wrote her tests. The girl realized that with her family she would never go to university. She had no money, so she decided to go to the capital to earn money. She really wanted to help her little brother, 8-year-old Jack. He was born with a heart defect, and from year to year the disease progressed. The poor child tired quickly. He could not run and frolic, and his lips often turned blue. An expensive operation was needed. They had been on the waiting list for a quota for a year now, and it was unclear how long they would have to wait. Amanda persuaded Wendy to go, promising her a golden mountain. "What are you so sour, friend? Why don't you come with me? We'll have more fun together. We'll get a job in a restaurant. We'll get rich, and maybe we'll find a businessman to marry. What's there to do in the village? Only deadbeats and drunks, there are no guys left. You said you were fed up at home, so why doubt it?" When Wendy told her mom, she cried and wailed, "Oh, my daughter, don't listen to that Amanda. She's all about partying. She'll lead you astray. They have relatives in the capital. Rose has bragged to me many times. Who needs you there? Where and what will you live on?" Wendy replied with heat. "Why would you do that, Mom? Amanda's my best friend. She said she'd take care of me too, and we'll live together at her relative's house." "It's okay, Mom. I'll make some money. We'll get Jack the operation." Pam put her arms around her daughter and held her close, whispering, "You're so grown up now. You're worried about your brother. But you are still so naive. You don't know life. You think strangers will take you in for a long time? Yeah, keep your pocket wide open. Amanda's family's a real piece of work, they're only in it for the lucre. Well, you should go if you're going to go. But just know that if things get tough, you come straight home. We don't have a lot of money, but I'll always pour a bowl of soup for my daughter. Let me hug you one more time, my good girl. All these memories whirled in her head, keeping her awake. It's getting light outside, they'll be going out soon. Her friend woke up, stretched sweetly, began to lay out boujanina and sandwiches, ordered tea from the conductor. Well, Wendy, why are you bored? We're on our way. Can you smell the capital? So let's have a quick cup of tea and get cleaned up. From the station, we'll go to my place first, drop off our stuff and go to the restaurant to get settled. And then we'll rush off to see the city. I can imagine how interesting it is there, not like in our backwoods. The girl sighed. Well, you've made a lot of plans. Let's just settle down and rest from the road, okay? Because I haven't slept all night, my head hurts. They wandered around for a long time until they found the right address. It was a dormitory neighborhood with trendy new buildings. The door was opened by a fat, shabby man in a robe. The niece waved at him. Hello, Uncle Sam. Here we are. Mom called you, didn't she? Can I come in? A thin, glamorous-looking lady appeared behind him and immediately noted, Hello, Amanda. You've grown so big. You're beautiful. Yes, your mother called and asked me to stay with you for a while. It's a sacred thing, after all. I just don't understand. Who's that with you? There was no mention of a second roommate. Wendy was embarrassed, and Amanda began to babble. This is my friend Wendy. We came to the capital together. I thought we'd stay together. It's more fun that way, isn't it? You've got a 3-bedroom apartment. There's plenty of room for everyone. The man frowned, and the lady of the house got up. No, niece, we didn't agree. We don't have a hostel here after all, and not a shelter. Let your friend rent a room for herself. That's what everyone does at first. I just saw the ad on the board in the courtyard. Come on in. You're welcome to come in. Amanda hesitated and began to whisper to Wendy, I'm sorry, friend. I didn't know it would be like this. I thought my aunt wouldn't mind. But it turned out like this. Here's some money my mother gave me for the road. Get yourself something, and tomorrow we'll meet at a restaurant. I'll send you the address later. Okay, bye. It's embarrassing being stuck in the front room. Amanda entered the apartment and slammed the expensive door in her friend's face. Amanda stood there with her heavy suitcase as if she'd been spit on, panicking about what to do now. Oh my! Patronized, they call it, girlfriend. Mom was right. Wendy did not know where to go in a strange city, completely confused, and wandered into a coffee shop, ordered coffee, and almost cried. The seller, a middle-aged woman with a red mop of hair on her head, stared at her intently, and then asked her in the forehead, A visitor? Provincial? No place to live? You guessed it. So you've come to conquer the capital too? Wendy looked up at her with big sad eyes and was surprised. Yes, that's right. My name is Wendy. And how did you know all this? The woman laughed. What's there to know? Frightened, with a suitcase, she didn't even specify what kind of coffee. It's all clear. And she's dressed like that, obviously not from the city. She was once like that herself. She came here dreaming of a prince and a beautiful life. Wendy asked for some reason. And what? Did it come true? The woman laughed again. Don't laugh, as you can see. Just an ordinary salesman and a single mom, that's it. My name is Kenzie. The capital city doesn't take kindly to the provincials. So don't get your hopes up, sweetheart, and get ready to work like an ox to survive. I can help you with accommodation. I rent a room from a grandmother, the second is free, and a quiet man lives in the third. Will you come? It's not much a month, but it's not much comfort. It hasn't been renovated in ages. But don't play any tricks. Don't bring your beau there and don't make any noise until morning. The landlady's strict. She'll kick you out in a heartbeat. Wendy was glad and agreed. She was used to the lack of comfort. Kenzie asked one of the staff to watch the cash register and took her to check in. The room was more like a den, small, stuffy, and dusty. The wallpaper was bubbling and of indeterminate color. Wendy sneezed and Granny wailed, Nothing. You'll clean it up. It'll be clean. Just make sure that you pay a month in advance and that you pay without delay. I know you young people. You have only wind in your head. The girl checked in, cleaned the room, laid out her things, finally took a shower, and fell exhausted on the creaking couch. The phone rang and Amanda chirped cheerfully. "Hi, girlfriend. How are you? Did you find a room? Have you checked in yet? Why don't we go out and have some fun?" Wendy replied angrily. "I found a room thanks to some kind people. But that's not what you promised me. You're going to the mansion and I'm going to the slums. I don't have enough money to go to places. I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere." Amanda tried to get out of it. "Don't be offended, Wendy. Who knew she'd get so defensive? It's okay. We'll live like this at first, and when we earn money, maybe we'll get an apartment together. We'll meet at the restaurant tomorrow at 8 Yes, and put on some decent clothes. You need to impress the owners because they meet you by your clothes." Wendy sighed. "Good to say. She's never had anything but jeans and sweaters. She hasn't even got a decent dress. I'll go in what I have. After all, it is only meat by clothes, but in work the main thing is hard work, and this I certainly do not occupy." In the morning, the receptionist met them at the restaurant and led them into the lobby. Wendy looked around in surprise. Everything seemed so beautiful and exquisite to her, a girl who was not spoiled with glamour. Amanda, on the other hand, was confident and even cheeky, smiling slyly at the receptionist as if she had known him for years. He looked at the two different girls and made a verdict. "So you, Amanda, will go to waitresses. You are perky, smiling, good figure, customers love them. And you, Wendy, you'll be the cleaning lady. Let's get your papers, girls. Let's get you registered." Wendy was in tears. How could it be? Amanda had tricked her again. She even tried to be indignant. "I don't want to be a cleaner. Why not a waitress? I'm a very hard worker. I'm a fast learner." The manager looked down on her and said, "I've put in a good word for Amanda. I've been holding a place for her for a long time. We never talked about you, Wendy. If you don't want the job, I'm not holding anyone back. You're free to go." Wendy overcame her pride and agreed because she couldn't find anything better. No experience, no education, only school. But she was very offended by her friend because it was Amanda who lured her to the capital, promised to help her with a job, but in fact she cheated her. So she lives in a palace, she has a decent job, and I'm at the bottom again? Amanda had changed a lot. She was distant from Wendy and often pretended she didn't even know her. I mean, why would a waitress and a cleaning lady know each other? It's not a bar thing. After working her first shift, Wendy came home, locked herself in her room, fell on the couch and sobbed like a beluga. She was no longer excited about moving. This was not the job she had dreamed of. There was a knock on the door. A tearful Wendy went to open the door. Kenzie stood on the doorstep with a piece of pie on a plate. "Hello, neighbor. Here, I baked this for you. It's still warm with cabbage. Help yourself." "Hey, what are you doing? Come on, tell me, what's the matter?" The girl honestly told her everything because this woman was so kind to her and she obviously had no self-interest. Kenzie listened and then said, "Yeah, she's a good friend, I can't tell you that." "Well, don't worry about it. The main thing is that you have a job, it's already good, time will pass, you'll look around, you'll get used to it, maybe you'll find something better. So let's go and drink tea. We live here quietly, friendly. If you need anything, please contact us." Kenzie talked at length about her hardships, about the trials she had experienced in her life, and Wendy calmed down a little. It didn't seem so tragic to her anymore. The workday went on. Wendy worked hard, scrubbing and cleaning all day long, tired as hell, and many people laughed at her, saying she was a fool to condemn herself to such hard labor when she was young. Now Amanda was proud of herself. Her nose was up. She was on good terms with the administrator. She was given fat orders to serve banquets. In general, her former friend was doing very well. The same couldn't be said for Wendy. Her salary was many times less, barely enough to live on, but it was almost impossible to save for the operation. One day the girl was walking home from the night shift. She decided to take a shortcut and go to the courtyard, so it would be faster. Suddenly she was attacked from 3 sides at once by a yard gang wearing hoods and with small knives in their hands, and they were about 16 years old, no more. They pinned her to the corner of the house and began to frighten her. "Hey, auntie, give us your wallet. We don't have enough for beer. Come on, hurry up, or we'll put you on a feather." Wendy was very scared, but the thought that she would have to give the last money from her paycheck gave her strength, and she pushed one of the boys with all her might and started screaming like a slaughterer. "People, police, help! They're killing, robbing." The boys hissed. One of them started waving a knife and tearing the bag. The situation was critical. And then a vagrant came out of nowhere. He threw a huge bag of empty bottles, broke one, and went with it on the villains. "And go away. Get away from the girl. I know you, redhead. You're from the 15th house. Tomorrow I'll tell the district everything." The boy shouted. "You snitch. Come on, guys. Let's give this smart guy a smack so he doesn't stick his nose where it doesn't belong." A scuffle ensued. The stranger fought and didn't even think of giving up. Wendy didn't stand aside. She grew up in a bad neighborhood and knew how to stand up for herself. They managed to fend them off. The scum ran away, realizing that the forces were not equal. And Wendy and the tramp sat down on a bench to catch their breath. The girl examined herself, rubbing her bruised knee and torn pant leg. Her arm had a couple of bruises. Her hair was all disheveled, but everything seemed to be all right. The boy was more hurt. His nose was bleeding, and he was pressing it down with the handkerchief Wendy had handed him. Then the stranger said, "Well, you're a beauty. That's the first time I ever saw a girl fight like that. That's a pretty good slash you gave him. Where'd you learn that?" Wendy grinned bitterly. "Life taught me. I grew up in a gangster neighborhood. I'm from a dysfunctional family with many children. Do you want me to go on? I recently came to the capital. I work in a restaurant as a cleaner. I need money for my little brother's surgery. So I got mad when those juvenile bastards tried to take my wallet from me. But if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have fought back alone. Thank you. You saved my life. I'm Wendy. Why are you loitering? You don't look like you've been drinking. You don't smell." The stranger answered, "I'm Max. I was found unconscious in a ditch 3 months ago by local homeless people. My head was bruised. I had been vomiting for a long time, some kind of poisoning. They left me in their shack, but who and where from I don't know, or rather I don't remember. I went to the police, but nobody would listen to me, they just laughed. So I have to survive somehow. I collect bottles, volunteers bring us hot lunches and almost new clothes, and so I exist. Shall I walk you home? God forbid someone else attacks." Wendy agreed. After what had happened, she was afraid to go alone. She and Max got to know each other better, became friends, and sometimes met. He started walking her home after evening shifts. One day her ex-girlfriend, Amanda, saw this as she was running to the car of another suitor. She glared at Wendy and Max from behind, and with disdain, "Bravo! You've already reached the bums? That's right. You two are perfect for each other, just the perfect couple." She laughed and waved her hand, and Wendy almost cried with resentment. Max also became unpleasant, though he is a vagrant. But things are not torn, worn only. He began to console the girl. "You are upset because of me? I must have come to the main entrance for nothing, right? I should have waited for you around the corner." Wendy waved her hand. "Fuck 'em all. This is the same friend who lured me to the capital, promised to help me, and now she's mocking me. These people, she measures everything by money. No money means you're not a person, just dust. I don't care. Let them think what they want. Don't get upset. Things happen in life. Maybe you'll remember something about yourself soon and your life will change." After that incident, Wendy had no life at all in the restaurant. She was mocked by everyone, considering her a blissful loser. The girl was completely hounded, even cry, and she couldn't go to work. But she was not going to stop communicating with Max and valued their friendship very much. She kept cleaning and scrubbing everything. She even got a bonus, and she persistently saved every penny for her brother's surgery. Only Kenzie, the neighbor, didn't judge her. I think it can happen in life. I get a lot of clients a day, and what I've noticed is that among the rich and glamorous there's a lot of bastards with a grudge. And sometimes a working man comes in for a coffee after his shift. His hands are not well groomed, he's not dressed well. When you talk to him, you'll find such a warm-hearted person. If your Max doesn't drink and doesn't lie, then maybe he really has lost his memory. But your friend is a bitch. Don't talk to her too much. Once there was a big banquet at a restaurant. A wedding of some very important person, a lot of guests and all famous people. The owner could not miss such an expensive order, even though he realized that to serve such a large banquet, he and the staff is not enough. That's when he suggested that each of the workers brought his other half to help. He promised a solid salary, and there would be enough work for everyone. Amanda walked by Wendy and teased her. "I'm coming with my fiancé, Volodya. He's a manager in an influential company. Handsome, agreed to help me. He loves me. And who are you coming with? Bring your lousy homeless guy to scare the guests? Ugh, disgusting." For the first time, the girl couldn't stand it and got angry. "It's none of your business. I too may have a rich fiancé, not your equal, so I'll come with him." After her shift, Max was waiting for her around the corner as usual. Wendy immediately started begging him, "Max, please help me. There's a huge banquet on Saturday. I've been told to bring someone I know to help, and I don't have enough people. Be my rich fiancé for the evening," because Amanda, as always, started bragging that she would come with a fiancé, and I told her in my heart that I have a rich fiancé too. I know it's stupid, but I'm so sick of her mockery. It's not a hard job, just deliver orders, change dishes, help in the kitchen. At the same time earn money. The owner promised to pay generously. Max replied in surprise, "I don't mind helping and earning, but what kind of rich man am I? You see, what the volunteers give me I wear, not exactly the outfit of a businessman." Wendy replied, "I know everything. Don't worry about it. I'll give you money for a hairdresser and a bath, and I'll get you a suit and shoes. Just tell me the size." "Thank you, Max. You're a true friend. We'll play such love, Amanda will bite her elbows." The guy thought sadly, "Oh, Wendy, you don't notice anything. I do love you. But why do you need me like this? Miserable, no passport, no job." Wendy asked her neighbors to help her and told them everything honestly. Michael promised to get a suit and shoes of the right size for rent at work. He worked as a security guard at a clothing store. Kenzie shook her head. "Oh, Wendy, what a scam you're running. They'll figure out Max isn't a rich guy anyway. What's the point of all this?" But Michael backed her up. "I'm for it. Let Amanda open her mouth in surprise. She's got our Wendy all worked up about it." Everything succeeded, and on the appointed day Max showed up at the restaurant. Wendy was radiant. The guy really looked respectable now. It was impossible to recognize that tramp in him. Amanda also came with a beau and glared angrily at Wendy, wondering where she had found such a decent guy. In the midst of the festivities, a terrible commotion ensued. The receptionist barely had time to give out instructions. Max was put in the dressing room to help guests with clothes. "The work is not dusty. Just smile, say hello, and keep quiet." When the young men came in, Max turned pale and recoiled. He tried to get lost in the rows of coats and hats so that no one would notice him. The assistant shouted at him, "What are you doing? You found a time to slack off. It's the bride and groom. They need special attention." Max mumbled, "I'm sorry. My stomach is twisted. I'll leave for a minute." In the restroom he became quite bad. He clutched his head. Flashes of pain and memories appeared one after another, making him almost scream from what he saw there. The celebration was gaining momentum. The guests were drinking and dancing. The bride was young and beautiful, but everyone did not like the groom. Arrogant, tattooed, like a criminal. He was nagging the whole staff to the point of fury. He was acting out. Wendy wondered why this lady would be attracted to him. Would a woman put up with anything for money? It's humiliating. Suddenly Max flew into the kitchen. He was strange and agitated. "Wendy, I remember everything. Can you believe it? Well, I'm going to give it to them." She did not have time to understand anything, and the guy abruptly went out into the hall and went straight to the stage where the musicians were playing. The guests gasped when he gestured them to be silent, and the music stopped. And Max took the microphone in his hands and began to speak, and with every word he said, all the guests were aghast and grabbed at their hearts. "Dear audience, my name is Max, and many of you know me well, don't you? I'm a respected businessman, the son of a famous philanthropist. Jean, dear bride, aren't you embarrassed by the fact that you and I are still legally husband and wife? Or have you decided that you killed me and divorced me in absentia? I wouldn't be surprised. What about you, Steve? You're my business partner. I brought you into my business. I trusted you with my business. How could you do that? I remember everything. You're the one who put something in my coffee. I barely finished it at the business meeting. And that's it. A blackout. They found me in a ditch, head bashed in, amnesia, poisoning. And I know you did it, and I called the police right now. They're on their way here right now. How come you're the lover of my lawfully wedded wife? How long have you been doing this? It's a circus. I'm at my own wife's wedding. Don't worry, lovebirds, you won't be cooing for long. You'll be taken away, and I'll make sure you both sit down." The groom immediately rushed from his seat and ran like a russock hare to the emergency exit, and his heels were shining. The bride fell on her knees and began to sob, wringing her hands. "Max, my love, forgive me. Don't ruin me. I don't want to go to prison. I don't know how it all turned out." A carriage arrived, but the groom unfortunately managed to escape, but the bride was taken away. The investigation also had a lot of questions for her. When everything calmed down, the guests did not understand what to do. Should they disperse or not? Many were in shock. And Max continued, "My dears, my parents are coming here now. They've been looking for me all this time." So the fun continues. But now for a different reason. I'd like to invite a young lady to this stage. Wendy, come here. Don't be shy. Come on stage. A dumbfounded Wendy, blushing, stepped onto the stage. All eyes were on her. She was uncomfortable with it. Max took her hand, and in front of everyone said loudly, "Dear ones, this girl here is just a simple cleaning lady that everyone laughed at. But I want everyone to hear it now. I love her. She's the best girl on the planet, and I'm going to marry her. Wendy, sweetheart, be my bride. Answer me in front of everyone. Do you agree? I can feel that you love me too." He didn't wait for an answer and kissed her passionately. Everyone in the audience applauded, and Amanda almost burst with jealousy. Her loser friend was so outdone. The homeless guy turned out to be a rich guy, and he confessed his love in front of everyone. She realized at that moment that she hated Wendy, and she would get back at her. Amanda was a leader by nature, and now she had been relegated to the sidelines. Wendy was crying with happiness, and couldn't believe that all this was happening to her. She nodded in agreement and answered into the microphone, "I agree. I love you too." Everyone clapped again, and Max hugged her and began to whisper words of love. And then they had fun. They danced. He danced around her so much. Wendy felt like Cinderella who had become a princess in the blink of an eye. How could that be possible? Max's parents came. They cried and hugged their son for a long time, thanking Wendy for unwittingly contributing to the fact that his memory came back. And he was no longer a bum, but a beloved son and businessman. Amanda was now catering a banquet where Wendy was not the cleaning lady but the businessman's fiancé. It pissed her off, and she kept muttering, "Look at her. She's sitting there all happy and shining. She thinks she's got the bird by the tail. Wait a minute, Wendy. We'll see who's on the horse. You miserable scrubber." Max divorced his ex-wife and brought her to his mansion as his bride. He forbade her to work in the restaurant. "All, my dear, stop bending your back. You are now a lady, my favorite girl, and I will not allow you to work as a cleaner. I want you to be the happiest you've ever been. Think about what kind of work you'd like to do. I'll help you get a correspondence course. You'll get a good profession, and then you'll give me a son and a daughter." Wendy kissed Max and babbled, "Thank you, darling. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I never dreamed of a husband like you. I will be your most faithful and devoted companion. I promise you." At first, the life of the young couple was really cloudless. Wendy cooked delicious dinners, ran the household, and waited for her fiancé from work. She decided that she would become a teacher and entered the university on a correspondence course. Max did not spare money for his beloved. Now she dressed fashionably, looked beautiful, and all glowing with love. But at the same time, Wendy did not forget about her sick brother for a second, and she put aside a little bit at a time, not daring to ask Max directly to pay for the operation. What if he thought she was with him for the sake of lucre? Everything would be wonderful, if not for Max's parents. They were against the fact that the next bride was a cleaning lady from a dysfunctional family with many children. They thought she was a squat, and thought she would take all the money from her husband. They repeatedly tried to talk about it with their son, but he did not want to listen to anything, because he was used to live with his mind, or rather his heart. But then Max's parents suddenly got an ally, the cunning Amanda. She could not rest the happiness of her poor friend. Envy was burning her from the inside. And the recent rumors about the parents' dissatisfaction with the choice of bride of their son Max did not pass by the insidious friend. And she decided to hunt down the enviable groom by all means. It is on her, on Amanda, he should marry. She's the one worthy of such a husband, not this wretch. Amanda is literally obsessed with this idea, and in her head there was a cunning plan. The clever girl caught up with Max's parents as they were leaving the theater and started a conversation with them. "Good evening, Louise. I'm Laura. Tiffany is my aunt. I have a business proposition for you. You see, Max doesn't know who he's messing with. I've known Wendy since I was a kid growing up in the same town. She's from a family of alcoholics, 5 kids, never had a decent meal. Well, Wendy's a real piece of work. She's been bouncing around the bunks since she was 15 years old. She's got no place to go. I was trying to save her. I brought her along. I thought she'd settle down, become normal. But no, she's back to her old ways. She has a boyfriend besides Max, and more than one. She's messing with your son's head. I feel sorry for him. Well, I'm willing to help you get rid of Wendy, but in return, I want to be your son's bride. My aunt would be happy to be related to such respectable people. Business would be expanded mutually. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I like Max a lot, but he's obsessed with that washerwoman. He can't see anyone but her. Louise clutched her heart and wailed. I knew we'd have a lot of tears with that poor girl. We have to save our son. I am ready for anything, only if my son was really happy. They talked and prepared the conspiracy for a long time, and both were satisfied. A week later, a scandal broke out in the house. Max was shaking a pile of pictures in front of the frightened Wendy's face. On them she was naked with some old man, in various poses, filthy and disgraceful. Wendy sobbed. Max, what are you doing? It's not me. Do you really believe any of this? Someone's trying to break us up. I only love you. I would never do such a thing. But the man was indignant. But the facts are clear. You've been going out at night lately. You've been out with him, haven't you? Do you think I'm a fool? Wendy sobbed and confessed. You've got it all wrong. I want to raise money for my brother's operation, so I got a job as a courier for a couple hours in the evenings. I save a little bit at a time. I was afraid to tell you. I'm sorry. I thought you'd be mad. But I'm not in those pictures, and I don't know that man. Why don't you believe me? It was as if Max was possessed by a demon, he shouted so that his veins swelled. Get out! Get out! That's what my mom told me, that you're a whore, and I didn't believe you, and you're lying about your part-time job. There's your part-time job in the picture. Wendy was mortally offended, got ready and left, shouting goodbye. How can you do that, Max? Why? And you said that you loved really. The girl did not know what to do, how to live on. The only person who could listen and understand her was Kenzie, her former neighbor. So Wendy went to her. There was nowhere else to go. She sobbed on her shoulder for an hour, telling her everything. And at the end she added, Max doesn't even know I'm pregnant with his child. I thought to surprise him, but now he will definitely not believe that it's his child. What should I do? Should I have an abortion? Who would want me single? Kenzie, I feel so bad. Why is he doing this to me? Before Max, I had no men at all. I only loved him. The woman shook her, called her 13-year-old daughter Lizzie and said, There, look here. Here it is, my happiness, my daughter, my pride. It's clear to you. That's who will need you. And don't think of taking sin on your soul. You'll regret it 100 times over. Somebody slandered you, I'm sure, and I think it's not without your clever friend. And Max is out of his mind right now, blinded by rage and jealousy. Time is of the essence. Why don't you go home? Tell your mom you're on vacation. Stay with your family. Try to find a job in the village. And then we'll see. In the meantime, I'll keep my ear to the ground, and if I hear any news, I'll call you right away. I was once abandoned by my fiancé, betrayed, and I thought I had nothing to live for. But believe me, with the arrival of a baby, life does not end. It just begins. You'll realize it later. And Mom is Mom. She will always forgive and understand. You'll see. Enough. Don't cry. Think about the baby. You'll spend the night at my place. Your room's taken, and then I'll walk you to the station. Chin up, Wendy. We're strong women. Everything will be all right. The girl calmed down a bit and went home in the morning. Her mother was very happy to see her, and her brothers and sisters crowded around her, asking her how it was to live in a big city, sorting out the gifts she had brought them. Even her father wept when he saw his eldest daughter. Wendy tried her best to appear cheerful and happy, entertaining the kids, but you couldn't hide anything from her mother. Pam could see her daughter's eyes were wet, and her voice was shaking a little, though she was chuckling. Late in the evening, when everyone had gone to bed, Pam looked intently at Wendy and asked, "What's the matter, daughter? I can see you're not yourself. You tell me. Don't be so secretive. We'll think of something together." And Wendy couldn't bear it. She told her mother everything without a word, deciding to let it be. She even felt better. The woman also cried. She didn't scold her daughter. She saw that she was already sick. She hugged her and began to comfort her. "Oh, my poor unhappy girl, how painful it is for you, how bad it is. Your fiancé is a jerk. He believed the photos, but not you. Amanda's the one who did it. She thought she was a princess since she was a little girl and you beat her to the punch. I guess she's out for revenge. Well, your tears will be repaid. Don't grieve, my daughter. I'll talk to your father myself. He'll shout and calm down. He loves you, you know, even though he's a drunkard. You'll have a baby. We'll live somehow. It's better to live at home than in other people's corners, scrubbing floors. You'll find such work here in the village. Don't tear up your heart. Calm down. Go to bed. You'll get a better start in the morning. Wendy cried and hugged her mother. Thank you, Mommy, for not driving away your daughter. I was so afraid of that. You know, I always thought I was unlucky. We live poor. I have no clothes. Always I babysit someone. It seemed so hopeless. But it turns out there's no place better than home. You forgive me, Mom. I wanted to earn money, to make Lesh's operation quicker, and it turned out like this. Pam became sad and serious. Yes, things are bad with Jack. The queue for the quota is moving, but slowly, 7 more people ahead of him. And he's getting worse and worse. He hasn't gone for walks in the yard for a long time. He's sleeping more. He's sad. And he's asking when he's going to die, soon or not. It's so scary when you see how your child is suffering and you can't help. I pray for him every night, asking God that my son would live to see the operation. They had a long heart-to-heart talk, 2 of the most dear people in the world. After all, only a mother understands and loves us as we are, with all the flaws and imperfections. That's what a mother is. Amanda rejoiced. She had achieved her goal, and poor Wendy was kicked out in disgrace. And now the sly girl turned on all her charm and charm, pressed on pity, and by right and wrong won Max's favor. He tried to forget the unfaithful bride, though he continued to love her in his soul. But he decided to go out with Amanda, on the principle that you can't beat a wedge with a wedge. Max's parents were also happy, and were already negotiating the terms of the contract between the families to make a merger of their companies. But Steve, Max's former business partner and his first wife's lover, who had been expelled with shame from the wedding, was out of business. He was not employed anywhere. Max had done his best. The mistress hurriedly went far away and did not want to see him, and he decided to take revenge on Max and finally kill him for real. This time he did not poison him, but snuck into the yard of the mansion at night and doused everything with gasoline, only to strike a match. The house burned to the ground. Amanda jumped out, screamed for help, called the ambulance and fire departments. But Max was not so lucky. He was badly burned, and in addition he was crushed by a fallen beam. For a long 8 hours the surgery was underway. His parents and new bride waited in the hospital corridor. Finally the doctor came out and announced the disappointing news. We did everything we could. We literally put the spine back together piece by piece. He will live, but to walk, alas, no. So we need to brace ourselves and accept it as it is. Her mother was sobbing. Amanda was also acting hysterical, but she thought to herself, why does she need a crippled fiancé now? It's a yoke for life. No, that's not the life she deserved. Max's face was badly hurt, and when the bandages were finally removed, Amanda even screamed and ran out of the room, unable to contain herself. And Max looked at the mirror, clenched his fists, and threw it on the floor. I'm a freak, Quasimodo, a miserable cripple. I'd rather die than live like this. I hate myself. And when he was discharged home, his fiancée was no longer at home. She had a big fight with his mother, who was always with her sick son. She berated her. What's the matter, Amanda? Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You said you loved Max, but you didn't? Did you chicken out? What about for better or for worse? The girl also became indignant. Why are you conscience me here? I thought we had a deal. I'm going to make Wendy disappear. I'm going to be Max's wife. I kept my deal. I lied to that blessed fool. I made a corny photo montage with Wendy's head and the body of a porn actress. It was funny. Max believed it and kicked the redneck out. But the truth is, that poor woman had never had a boyfriend before Max. But I wanted to be the wife of a successful businessman. That's what we agreed, not to take care of a cripple. And Max is so ugly you can't look at him without shuddering. I'm not going to waste my youth taking care of him. So have a nice day. Goodbye. The women shouted so much that they didn't notice that Max was listening to everything outside the door. He was shocked. He ran into the living room in his wheelchair and shouted, "How could you two? So all those photos were fake? And Wendy never cheated on me? Mom, did you know and lie to me too? You, me, I hate you both." And he went to his bedroom and locked himself in there. He howled, yelled, banged his fists against the wall. Fool, cretin. How could I have believed it? Wendy's not guilty of anything, and I've embarrassed her like that, calling her a slut. I'm such an idiot. I ruined my own happiness. And now it's too late to change anything. I'm an ugly, ugly, handicapped person. Why would she want me like that? Just to ruin her life? I wish I could close my eyes and never open them again. Amanda did not grieve long and soon got herself another promising suitor, and Max completely lost interest in life and went into a deep depression. He withdrew, became sullen, did not talk to anyone, especially to his mother, considering her a traitor, did not leave the room at all, even forbade to open the curtains, and sat in the dark all day long. Louise could not calmly look at the suffering of her only son. She tried to bring home a doctor or a psychologist, but Max did not let anyone on the doorstep, shouting only, "Bring a psychologist to yourself. Tell me how you betrayed your son. Ease your soul. I don't need one." The woman was crying, and in her heart she realized that her son was right, and she had to correct her mistake herself. Wendy was on her way home from her part-time job as a letter carrier. She picked up the kids from school, bought them a poppy seed bun, and took them home. Already at the gate, she saw Louise. Louise was standing there, hesitating to knock. Wendy said quietly to the children, "Go inside. I need to talk to that aunt." As they sat down on the bench, Wendy said angrily, "Well, hello there. What are you doing here? I'm sorry. I'm not calling you in the house. We don't have a palace. You might get your expensive clothes dirty, and I'm not happy with you. Have you decided to see for yourself how a fallen woman lives? Well, here I am. I'm helping my mother to raise her brothers and sisters on their feet. I'm working. I'm waiting for a child from your son. But he doesn't want one. Amanda must have taken my place, right?" Louise suddenly cried so bitterly, so full of tears that Wendy was startled, and the woman began to recount through her sobs everything that had happened. At the end she added, "I'm sorry, Wendy. I'm the last bastard. It was me and Amanda who broke you up with Max. I thought then that such a simple girl as you are not worthy of my son. I was so wrong. As soon as Max was in trouble, that little hussy ran away. She said she wasn't hired to take care of an invalid, and I feel so sorry for my son you can't imagine. My heart is torn to shreds. He sits in the dark 24 hours a day, does not eat almost anything, became angry, aggressive even, curses me every day that I broke his life. Those photos slipped, and I want to go to my grave alive. I don't know what to do. Why don't you come with me? Why don't you try to support Max? You're the only one who loved and understood him so sincerely and wholeheartedly, and he's still pining for you, I know it. I understand that his face is disfigured and he's in a wheelchair now, and I'm not asking you to live with him. It's a heavy cross to bear. But it's important to me that you at least talk to him. I want to at least try to undo what I've done, even though it's probably too late, and this is my payback for all my sins." Wendy suddenly thawed, her resentment gone. She whispered, "I'll go with you. I don't care what he's like. I met him when he was a tramp and fell in love with him before I knew Max was a businessman. If you love, it's not for something, it's your heart, you know. I won't leave Max in his hour of need. I'll be right back." Max did not know whether it was morning or evening. The blinds were tightly closed and the curtains were drawn. He decided so himself. What did it matter to him now? He didn't want to live, and every day was agony for him. He cursed himself for having treated the woman he loved so cruelly, kicking her out, and he could not forgive himself for it. When there was a knock at his room, he was sure it was his mother, and he shouted, Don't come in here. I don't want to see you." Usually after he said that, his mother would leave, but this time the door opened and he saw Wendy on the doorstep. Max was stunned and looked at her with all eyes and whispered, Wendy, how did you get here? Don't look at me, please. I'm a freak now. I know you can't look at me without being disgusted. And a crippled, infirm invalid. Go away. You don't want me like this. You just know that I'm very remorseful. I found out the truth by accident. Forgive me, my love, if you can, and don't remember your tramp." The girl rushed to Max. She sharply turned his stroller so that he looked her directly in the eyes, and began to whip him on the cheeks and shouted, "Ah, you rascal, you poor egoist. You've made up your mind for everyone, haven't you? And you revel in your grief? I don't care what kind of face you have, whether you can walk. I still love you and will love you because my heart can't command it. And because we're about to have a baby. You don't care about him either? You've decided everything for him too? No, I'm not going anywhere else. I'll make you eat, sleep, love, live. For me, For my son. For my mother. Do you understand? Max suddenly grabbed Wendy's arm so hard that she swayed and fell right into his arms. He began to kiss her passionately, embraced her, inhaled the scent of her skin, hair, and whispered, "God, my love, have you forgiven me? Are we really going to have a baby? Am I going to be a father soon? It's crazy. I'm such an asshole. I almost lost the woman I love. I love you, Wendy. You're the only one who understands me. I'm sorry, girl. I'll never hurt you again. Just don't go anywhere else, I beg you. You really didn't cheat on me? I almost went crazy with jealousy." Wendy also cried with happiness. She didn't notice his rough scars and whispered, "You fool. I was working part-time. My brother is getting worse. He may not live to see the operation, and I still cannot save even half of the amount. My mother also," all the eyes cried, "I love only you, and I don't need anyone else." Max got serious, called his father and told him, "Dad, take out of my account what Wendy says and transfer it to the best pediatric cardiology clinic. Tomorrow a boy, Wendy's brother, will be brought there. We need to get him into surgery right away. Please do it." The father was so happy that his son had finally come to his senses that he did everything with joy, and Lesha was operated on a week later, just in time. Wendy's mom prayed for her daughter and her fiancé because they had saved the child's life. It was such a good deed. And Wendy got to work on Max. She and his mother called the best foreign clinics, and in Hamburg they undertook to help, to operate on the man at their own risk. The chances were minimal, but they were still there. Max had to implant in the spine of a complex structure of metal, thanks to which he may be able to walk, and a facial reconstruction. Of course, Wendy flew out with him, was with him all the time, never left him alone for a second. And the miracle happened. Max got back on his feet, even if he limped and walked with a stick, but it was a tremendous success. The big ugly scars were smoothed out, and Max's face was no longer repellent. Hand in hand, the young people had passed all the tests and were now living happily ever after, and busily preparing for the wedding while the tummy was still not bulging much. Amanda was angry again, biting her elbows. The suitors did not stay long. Not only that, she had contracted a bad disease from the last of them and had to be treated for a long time. Relatives did not need such a reputation, and they sent her niece home, out of harm's way. So the impudent girl was left at a broken trough, alone, and with compromised health. And no matter how angry she got, there was nothing she could do about it. Steve had been found. He had gone on a robbery, and they had put him in jail, adding a term for arson. Now he would spend many years in the barn, so he should. Louise was now praying for her daughter-in-law. She and Wendy had become best friends. The old feud was long forgotten. The old woman had only now seen what true love could do. She could do anything. So Louise was getting ready to become a grandmother and nurse her favorite grandson or granddaughter. Matchmakers helped Wendy's family, bought them a good 2-story house in the village, a lot of things for the children. Now everyone had their own room. Life became much easier. Wendy's father was coated and persuaded to quit drinking at least in his old age, and to remember that he had 5 children and a wife falling off her feet. John saw everything with different sober eyes, and grabbed his head. It turned out that he was about to become a grandfather. Wendy was getting married, Jack was cured, and he had been in a stupor all this time and hadn't helped in any way. John looked at his wife with guilty eyes and berated himself. "I'm sorry, Pam. I was a fool. I drank my whole life away. And you were the only one pulling everyone on your back. And you didn't leave me, an alcoholic. You put up with my tricks. You're worthless." The woman finally heard the very words, glad of which she pulled her burden all her life. She cried, hugged her husband, and replied affectionately, "Nothing, John. I love you. We have a family. And for the sake of a family, you can endure anything. Thanks to our Wendy for helping us so much and for bringing you to your senses. Everything's gonna be okay now." The man was embarrassed. He found a job as a locksmith, and he didn't drink anymore, so it was much easier for Pam to live with her husband's support. And Wendy had one more important thing to do. She anxiously called the room of her former roommate, Kenzie. She came to the door and saw a radiant Wendy with a huge cake in her hands. She chirped, "Hello, Kenzie. Call Michael, Lizzie. Let's go have tea. I have amazing news, so much to tell." They were having tea and Wendy was telling everything in detail. Kenzie was happy for her. Lizzie and Michael too. And then Wendy pulled 3 vouchers out of her purse and said solemnly, "Dear Mr. Neighbors, I came to tell you the most important thing, in a strange, unfamiliar city, when I was so hard and I was ready to give up. It was you who helped me to survive, supported me with a kind word, advice, and sometimes even a piece of bread. And now that my life is finally better, I am married to Max, expecting a son from him, and I am very happy. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Here are the vouchers to the sanatorium for a week for 3 people. You'll have a good rest, you'll have fun, you'll breathe the sea air, and then I'll be waiting for you all at the wedding. I hope we'll have fun." Lizzie squealed and threw herself on Wendy's neck. "Aunt Wendy, you're the best! Yay, I'm going to the seaside!" Michael was embarrassed, thanked her, but it was obvious he was very happy and went to pack. And Kenzie said, "Thank you, Wendy. I couldn't have dreamed of this. I've been working all my life, raising my daughter, and I don't have time for a vacation. But tell me, why 3 people? What's Michael got to do with it?" Wendy winked at Kenzie. "How can't you see anything under your nose? He looks at you like a queen. He's been quietly in love with you for a long time, but he's afraid to tell you. You have repeated 100 times in front of everyone that men are assholes and you don't need anyone. And Lizzie thinks Michael is hers. They're best friends. So I thought, what if something happens at the resort? It's not like sharing a refrigerator. There's romance, the sea. Anyway, good luck. And I look forward to seeing you at the wedding." Neighbors warmly embraced and said goodbye, and a month later all together danced at the wedding. There were a lot of guests, but they weren't pompous turkeys from the upper classes. Wendy's whole family, Max's family, and of course the neighbors. Who could do without them? Kenzie was radiant and proudly held Michael's hand. Lizzie was happy too. She liked a dad like Michael. He was kind, quiet, and loved them. Wendy, seeing them, gave a thumbs up and asked mysteriously, "How was the vacation? Did you enjoy it? You all look wonderful, rested, tanned." Michael hugged Kenzie and Lizzie and replied sincerely, "Thank you, Wendy. If it weren't for you, I never would have decided to tell Kenzie I loved her. And we're very happy for you too. Be happy, girl, you definitely deserve it." Wendy laughed, twirled in the dance with Max, and thought that now, at this very moment, she was the happiest person in the world, and wanted to shout about it to the whole world. After all, she was marrying the man she loved, and soon she would have her favorite son. She had only loving and devoted relatives and friends around her. Wasn't it happiness? Now she knew for sure that no matter what difficulties life would bring her in the future, she would definitely cope. She had someone to live for.